Harriet Tubman, the heroine of the Underground Railroad. Do you believe in superheroes? Well, one thing you can be sure about is that not all of them wear capes. At least, Harriet Tubman didn't. But she was still a real-life superhero in every single way. Harriet Tubman is a heroine that helped slaves in their escape to freedom. Among the slaves Harriet rescued, she never lost a single one of them. She made a total of 13 trips, with each trip taking up to weeks. And can you believe she did this all as a wanted fugitive, with a bounty on her head and a brain injury that caused her to experience seizures? Let's take a trip back in history to explore the extraordinary life of Harriet Tubman, an Underground Railroad heroine. Born a slave. Harriet's date of birth is estimated to be between 1820 and 1822. She was one of 9 children born to Harriet Green and Benjamin Ross, who were slaves in Dorchester County, Maryland. Mary's grandmother, Modesty, was shipped as a slave from Africa. Although little is known about her ancestry, it is speculated that she was from Ghana. At the age of 5, Harriet's owner, Brodess, hired her out as a maid to a woman named Miss Susan. She was tasked with caring for the baby and rocking the cradle as the baby slept. Whenever the baby woke up and cried, Harriet was thoroughly whipped. As she grew up, she found ways to resist. She would sometimes wear layers of clothes that would protect her against the beatings. Eventually, she started fighting back and even running away for days. As a preteen, at about 12 years of age, Harriet suffered a severe head injury. This happened when an overseer threw a 2-pound or a 1-kilogram metal weight at a slave who was attempting to flee. Instead, the metal hit Harriet on the head. It broke her skull and she fell unconscious. This injury left her with extremely painful headaches that occurred frequently. She also experienced seizures and randomly fell unconscious. A doctor suggests that Harriet may have had temporal lobe epilepsy from her injury. Other historians suggest that she suffered from narcolepsy, which is a condition that causes one to fall into heavy sleeping spells. But Harriet claimed that she experienced visions and dreams during her seizures, and God spoke to her. This experience made Harriet acquire a very passionate relationship with God, which guided her actions throughout her life. In search of freedom. Harriet married John Tubman when she was in her early 20s. John was a free black man, and although relationships between the free and the slaves were fairly common, their marriage was somehow complicated. In 1849, Harriet fell ill again. This made her less useful in her master's home, and he decided to sell her. When Harriet got wind of this, she was enraged and decided that she would not wait for her fate to be decided by someone else. She made up her mind that she would escape. Her husband tried to persuade her to stay, but Harriet said that she had a right to 2 things, liberty and death, and if she could not have one, she would have the other. Harriet made her first attempt at escaping alongside her 2 brothers on September 17, 1849. When Brodess noticed they were missing, she posted a runaway notice with a reward of $100 for each of their capture. The record of this notice is still available in the Cambridge Democrat newspaper dated October 3, 1849. Is it not amazing how such records exist decades later? Have you been enjoying this video? Our YouTube data shows that 0.1% of our viewers aren't subscribed, and we hope you're not a part of that. But if you are, let's have that fixed. Go right ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you never miss another video. So why did Harriet and her brothers fail in their escape? The brothers, Ben and Harry, had second thoughts on their way. Ben may have become a new father, so they decided to turn back, forcing Harriet to go back with them. Before long, though, Harriet decided to escape again, this time without her brothers. She escaped through the Underground Railroad, which was a network built by abolitionists to help slaves find freedom. The journey was 90 miles, that's 145 kilometers, which may have taken a few weeks. Traveling by night, she was guided by the Northern Star, and before long, she was finally in Philadelphia. For the first time in her life, Harriet was now free, and even the sun's warmth on her skin felt more glorious. She had been born into slavery, where she could only be free at the age of 45. But now, while still in her 20s and with a whole life ahead of her, Harriet was free to live her life the way she wanted. One can only imagine how surreal that moment was for her. Codename Moses. Though she was free, Harriet's family was not. Her father, mother, sisters, and friends were still back in Maryland. She knew she had to go back and help them escape. It was a big risk, and a new set of challenges existed. The U.S. had just passed the Fugitive Slave Law of 1850, which heavily punished fugitives and forced law enforcement officers to assist in their capture. But when Tubman received news that her niece Keziah and her 2 children were to be sold in Cambridge, she knew it was time to act. Harriet traveled to Baltimore and hid in her brother-in-law's house until the day of the sale. When the auctioneer stepped away for lunch, the family escaped to a nearby safe house. That night, they were taken to Harriet, and she brought them to Philadelphia. Her first rescue had been a success, and many more were to follow. Harriet made other trips mostly during winter months to rescue her friends and family that were still in Maryland. It was easier to move in winter because most people stayed indoors and the nights were longer. She also employed different clever tactics in her missions. Some of the tactics she used were disguises. To ensure that no one recognized her, she would wear a bonnet, pretend to be a farmhand, and walk around with chickens in her hands. She also used songs to communicate with those she was rescuing. She would change the lyrics to inform them what time they would leave, to warn them of any danger, and to signal them when it was safe to keep going. The song, Go Down Moses, was one song she loved using when communicating with her people. Because of the song and the phrase, Come with me if you want to live, which she commonly used, Harriet was nicknamed Moses, alluding to the biblical Moses, who guided his people to freedom from Egypt. Over a period of 11 years, Harriet rescued 70 slaves in 13 trips. She also gave detailed instructions to 60 more fugitives. Her success can be attributed to her strictness and discipline. With a revolver that she carried with her, she would threaten anyone who attempted to turn back, as they would put everyone else at risk. Even with a bounty on her head, she managed to avoid slave catchers and their dogs and was never caught. Impressive, right? Click on this video for more epic and fun historical content.